like to first thank you guys all for tuning in. My name is Derek Welker, and today we're going to be discussing how to better handle your PDFs with SolidWorks Inspection in order to create first article inspection reports. So I just got a quick little image here, screenshot of the actual interface. We're going to take a look at this in just a little bit. But first, let's get into talking or discussing the common issues that we see when it comes to manually creating these first article inspection reports. I think most of the people that we see that are creating these first article inspection reports are doing it manually. So I just wanted to point out some of the issues that we see that are caused by that. So in essence, doing it manually just takes a lot of time. So the time to market and just the time to actually create the report is definitely longer than it should be. And because you are doing it manually, humans are not correct, or not correct all the time. So the human error plays a factor, and there sometimes is misinformation. So whether it comes down to manufacturing issues or just an issue when it comes to inspection, along the lines, there's typically always some sort of misinformation. So when a revision process or a new revision is issued, typically we see a Delta first article inspection report get created, but sometimes you might have to go ahead and recreate everything all over again. Doing this manually, you're basically redoing all the work that you just did. Using SolidWorks Inspection, we have the ability to bring in a revised drawing and reassociate a lot of those characteristics so we can maintain a lot of the specific properties. But doing it manually definitely takes a little bit of time. Manual data entry. Now, this isn't a huge issue. It's just the fact that, inside of inspection, you have the ability to input your data right directly in inspection, and you can look at the specific value. It looks directly on the drawing and highlights everything for you. So when you go in and put it in, it color codes it. Now, if you do this manually, you're looking at a drawing, then you're also looking at the report, and you're just manually typing it in. So it's not specifically clear. I mean, this really isn't an issue, but it's something that can be improved upon. So why SolidWorks Inspection? So I kind of just discussed all of the common issues that we see, and that should really lend itself to why inspection. So if those things are issues, well, inspection can resolve some of those. So we have the ability to create the inspection documents faster. So our first article and inspection reports are going to be created, finalized, and done faster. And the way that SolidWorks Inspection does things, it eliminates errors and inconsistencies because a lot of it is done for us. We have what's called the optical character recognition, which we'll talk about in just a second, but that's what SolidWorks Inspection uses to eliminate errors and inconsistencies. SolidWorks Inspection handles revision. We kind of just discussed this, but it does have the ability to bring in a revised drawing, and we can kind of update the characteristics that we've already ballooned. We have the ability to perform inspections faster. So going through and actually doing the inspection by using the manual data entry within SolidWorks Inspection. We kind of just talked about that. That was kind of one of the issues that I pointed out. But using SolidWorks Inspection, we have the ability to go in and say, let's just type the values right into the software, and it can color code everything, and you can kind of just get things done quicker. And just its ease of use. I actually find that creating a first article inspection report in SolidWorks Inspection is extremely easy to use. It's very intuitive, and anybody can pretty much pick it up in an afternoon and get rolling with it. And then it's SolidWorks integration. Today we're going to be focusing on the standalone aspect of SolidWorks Inspection, but there is an add-in to SolidWorks that can actually speed things up even quicker. And we'll kind of discuss this at the very, very end. So going through and creating inspection documents faster, what do we have in here? So we've got the optical character recognition. So I mentioned that earlier, but what that does is it highlights over the area that you're looking at, and it tries to recognize what's in there. So if it sees that there's a 15 dimension in there, it'll try and recognize that as being 15. It'll apply it in there, and it'll apply in all of the correct tolerances for that, so that it's trying to do the work for you. So you don't have to manually go in and specify the value of that dimension or tolerance or whatever it may be each and every time. You can let the software do the work for you. Default tolerances are applied based on the title block. So typically when you're looking at a title block, like this little screenshot I've got here, it says, hey, look, based on either the range or the precision, here's some tolerance values. So then you'll go into SolidWorks Inspection and you'll go in and you'll specify the tolerances based on the title block, so that when you go in and grab a capture, whatever, and automatically calculates your upper and lower limit, it will do it based on the tolerances you've already applied. So you don't actually have to calculate it for every single one. It can do it for you. Now, we also have the ability to hide captures. So once you capture a specific dimension, for example, we have the ability to hide that. So it kind of declutters your drawing so you can look at the ones that you haven't captured yet. So just a nice little feature that's in there. So like I just talked about, it automatically calculates the upper and lower limit. So you can see based on the characteristics that I grabbed here, based on the precision of that value 20, it applies a plus minus half an inch or half millimeter tolerance here. And you can see it automatically applies for us. And when we get into actually looking at the software, you'll see exactly what it does. But there's a quick little synopsis there. We also have the ability to change multiple characteristics at the same time. So I can like control select or shift select or whatever it may be, and I can change a whole bunch of different characteristics all at the same time. So it gives me some additional speed, I guess you would say, to get things done quicker. Eliminating errors and inconsistencies, right? We just talked about the OCR, the optical character recognition, and how it goes through and it does things in the background for us. And this eliminates errors because it eliminates translation issues, because it just knows the value. It knows the value, it applies your plus and minus tolerances and makes it so you don't actually have to do the math. So it removes a lot of that stuff for you. Another thing that is nice is included in SolidWorks Inspection, you have the ability to take that image capture that you grab using SolidWorks Inspection, and you have the ability to put that in your first article inspection report, so that you can, if for some reason there's a translation or the OCR recognizes it wrong, looking at your report, you'll actually see the capture from the drawing on the first article inspection report. So if it says 20 or the picture's 20 and it says, 29 or something like that, you'll be able to say, hey, look, it's a quick little easy way to say, on the drawing it said 20, so we need to go back and adjust this. All right, so you can see I've got the picture, and where it says requirement, anything that's blue is your image. And then this essentially eliminates fat finger issues because it does everything in the background for us. Handles revision. So this is kind of something we talked about, and because it handles revision, it can eliminate the need for a Delta first article inspection report. So it compares revisions of the PDF or TIFF file. So SolidWorks Inspection, its formats that it uses are PDF or TIFFs, so you can look at revisions of either. And it does color code the changes. So it basically overlays the two different drawings that you specify, or the two different PDF files, and based on its overlay, it'll tell you what has changed and what has not changed. So anything that appears in black has not been changed. So you can see a couple of those dimensions there appear in black, and the reason why is when you just overlay green and red, it comes out to be black. So you can kind of see that they show up there. Anything that's new or changed is green, and anything that has been removed or changed as well, it appears as red. So even though there are some dimensions that were just moved, that signifies as being a new and a missing. So if their dimensions moved, you'll see a green one and a red one. So dimensional changes still maintain all of their properties. So being that even though the dimensions may move, all you have to do is move the capture window to the new dimension or the new placement of that dimension, and you can recapture if you'd like. But what this does is it maintains all of the properties that you have associated with that. So if you've gone in and specified, okay, this is a milling operation, it's a basic dimension, and you're going to use dial calipers to do so. You don't have to go in and recreate all that. You can just say, let me just recapture where this is, and it maintains all of those properties. Also, the compare tool can also export a PDF of the differences. So taking a look at that screenshot that I have up there, you can kind of see the differences between them. But what you can also do is you can export that out as a PDF. So you could put it up on one of your monitors and say, okay, here's the things that are changed, and you can open up inspection on the other side and actually kind of coincide of each other to get all of the changes worked out. The ability to perform inspection faster. So Inspection Professional allows the input directly into the program, and it highlights the value within the drawing when you're inputting the value. It color codes the values as well as the OCR capture area. So when you go through and capture these dimensions, and then you go in and specify a value when you're basically inputting your inspection report in, it color codes them. So you can see we've got green, yellow, and red. Green is good, red is outside your tolerance, and yellow is set default to being 80% towards either max or minimum. So if it's past 80%, it'll show up as minimum, or as yellow, sorry. The CMM data input has the ability to automatically assign values. So if you're using the CMM, you have the ability to bring in your CMM and then have the software automatically assign based on specific values. So if you do have a lot of unique dimensions and tolerances and stuff like that, it can automatically assign them to everything. Also, you have the dial caliper integration. So if you have a dial caliper that hooks in to your computer via USB or something like that, you can specify the value that you want, move your dial calipers on the part, and then you just hit the button and it automatically populates that value into the inspection software. And then it color codes and everything like that. So what I want to do now is I've kind of talked you through SolidWorks Inspection and what it does just as a quick overview. Let's get into the actual software, and I'll show you a little bit more. So this is just one basic part, and this is kind of what the interface looks like. And let me just take you through the interface. At the top, we've got kind of a ribbon menu, very similar to what SolidWorks looks like. On the left-hand side, we've got our properties. On the bottom, we've got our bill of characteristics. So this is every single characteristic that gets a balloon specified for it, and then we have our measurements input. So we have the ability to throw in our input values, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. On the right-hand side, we've got our CMM data import, which we'll talk about later as well. So taking a look at our project properties, this is the first thing that you do. So you'll go in and specify your part name, your part number, your part revision, or anything like that. I'm just going to grab like my drawing number here. You go in and you basically highlight over the value that you want, and you can see it picks that up. So like my 1 might need to be an I, or if you want to leave it at 1, that's fine. I can go ahead and change this as I. So we can go through and just kind of specify some of these. So if you go down in here to like organization name, right? We can say we've got our Tektite treads here, right? And just highlight, and you can see it picks it up. So it manually goes in, or you go in and you manually grab your region, but it automatically will capture what all of it says, the numbers and everything in the background. Once I hit OK, we now have the ability to go in and start specifying our dimensions. So once I click on my dimension tool, you can see I get a little bit of cursor feedback like I do in SolidWorks, and I can go ahead and specify some of these dimensions. So I can go ahead and grab that 20, and you can see it pops up. I've got my 20, my plus half, my minus half. And the one thing I didn't do yet was specify my tolerance range. So let me zoom in. I'm just going to zoom in here, and you can see that we've got our tolerance in our title block. So let me just move this over here. And when I open up my options, in my project options under general, I have my tolerance. So I can look and say, okay, based on my precision, so we've got 0, 1, and 2 decimal points. We've got half, minus half, plus minus half, and then plus and minus 0.1. So these values are correct for what we're doing. And if you're working on something that's always the same, you can set up tolerances that, or set up templates that automatically define these tolerances. So once it's been accomplished, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to zoom back out and kind of go over to the area that I'm looking at just to make it a little bit easier for myself. So I'm going to go back in and continue capturing dimensions. So I'm going to go ahead and capture my 56. Right, and then my 80, and literally when I'm working inside of SolidWorks Inspection, I just go through and I quickly highlight over everything, and then I'll go back later and change it. Now see what happens when we get like this 12? It picks it up as being 3. all we have to do is rotate it and hit our capture window, and it goes through and recaptures everything for us, right? Same with this 6. This 6 will be picked up as kind of horizontal. We just flip it, recapture, and it should update. Now, in this case, if it doesn't actually pick it up well, we can go ahead and just click on 6, or just type in 6 and it will update. So I can go ahead and do my 20 again. I can do another 6 over here, right? And we can kind of go through. Now, if you come into something that's like this radius 17, we can go ahead and we've got the fine controls to be able to adjust it, right? So I can go down here and adjust it a little bit more, hit my capture, and it updates. Now you see, looking at this capture, we've got an R17. Now to that, or to us, that means that that's a radius of 17. When you go to capture it, you can see in the subtype, it picks it up as a radius. It knows that an R is a radius. So SolidWorks Inspection is smart enough to know a lot of these things. So it grabs the value as 17. It doesn't try and calculate that R as being something else, and then you have to change it. Now, what I typically do is I start off and I go through and I create all my captures first, and then I go back in afterwards. So I'm going to go and start to my first characteristic, and this is where I'll go through and say, okay, this might be a cutting operation, for example. My classification here is just this one's a minor, and the method is going to be a CMM or digital calipers, right? So we can kind of do all this and, you know, go ahead and specify this. You know, if I go back over to my 6, or if I just go through and find that 6, right, I can specify basic here, right, and kind of get that on there. Right, same with my 12. I can go ahead and specify that's basic. But if I want to change multiple at a time, so I go in, I go over to my inspection method, and you can see I've got one labeled as CMM, but I don't have a lot of them, all of the rest labeled. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a shift select. I'll go into my method, and I'm going to say digital calipers. And then what you'll see is when we go over here, every single one of those are digital calipers. So you can quickly change a lot of things just by doing like a control select or a shift select. So down at the bottom, it shows us all of our bill of characteristics. So it starts with your balloon, your character number. If you have a grid laid out, it gives you your character zone. So what I can do is I can go up to a grid, and I'm not going to specify this to line up with everything that I've got, but you know, you can go ahead and we can adjust the amount of rows, anything like that. So how many we can do, 4 or 5. We can adjust it like this, 6, kind of drop it down a little bit. So we'll go with something like this. Once I hit OK, you'll see down we've got our character zone down here in our bill of characteristics, and that can also be exported to our first article inspection report. So now that I've kind of specified most of that, I haven't done a whole lot, but what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and export this out, and you can kind of see what it looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and export this to Excel, and we're just going to go ahead and export this out. And it popped up over in my other screen, so I had to bring this over. But you can see this is essentially what we would get out. Now, I didn't apply a part number or anything in here. I just kind of skipped over it, but this is where your part number would then be populated, your part name, anything like that that you specified. But you can look down here. We've got our reference location. So it says zone 2A. It's a linear dimension. Here's the image that I was talking about. So we've got inch, you know, whatever we might be doing here, our upper, our lower limit, our results if we want them. So we can go in and I can specify 20 or anything like that. And then it tells us our tooling design here, and then any other notes. So you saw how quickly it was for me to just go in there, capture them, and create the report from that. So let me go in. I'm going to go back over into here, and I'm going to go ahead and close this project out. Now I'm going to go ahead and open up another project that we're working on here, and I want to take you through the revision change here. So in this case, you know, we've got some values already associated with some of this stuff, but what we've noticed is, okay, we've got a revision change coming in. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is in my drawing tab, I'm going to say specify compare. It pops up and it wants me to grab my next revision. So I'm going to go ahead and grab Rev A. Now when I go to open this, it goes through and it calculates everything. And then you can see this is where I was kind of getting that image before. You can see what's going on. You can see that there's some changes, and then we can go ahead and just hit replace. Now, taking a look in the upper left-hand corner here, this is where our image capture windows are. So what I can do is I can just kind of move this capture over. I can resize it a little bit, right? And once I make my change, this used to be a value of 12. I just recapture this and it's 7. So if I had specific properties already associated with this, it's really quick to just adjust both of these, click on your rotate and recapture, and it re-updates everything that you've got going on. So SolidWorks Inspection has the ability to do all this stuff for you. So this is better, totally better handling your PDFs, especially when you're getting in revisions. If we go down into our measurements input, we've got some of these already specified, but here's where I was talking about it could be easier. Literally, like if I want to place this 12 dimension, I just pick on it here. It automatically highlights everything for me and says, okay, it ends up being 12, and that's my green, right? So if I go to my 7 and I say, okay, this is the one I want to do, and this ends up being 7.2, right? That's green. I go to my 70 here. Let me go to like 80.4, right? That's still within our acceptable range here. So let me go 80.49. Right, you can see that comes out as being yellow because it is past that 80% range or whatever we have specified here. But you can see actually going through and inspecting these, it's so much easier because all I have to do is click on it, and it pops up down here, and we can say, okay, this is 6, and this is our value that we have. And then you can even specify multiple. So if you want to go ahead and have a high and a low value to use, you can do that as well. We also have the ability to use our CMM data, and this kind of it automatically populates your CMM data into your measurements input. And what you can see is if I want to add another one, I can add another sample part. So I can do multiple different samples. So once we already have these associated, that's what's nice is that when we already have them associated, when they update or when the revision changes, we can go ahead and update a lot of these, right? So this one, I'm just going to adjust a little bit. And you can see that it specifies what we're trying to do and everything else. So we can kind of show everything that's going on with this. So that's what I wanted to point out here is the fact that it can create everything for you extremely, extremely easily, and that's what makes it beneficial. So you can see a lot of these that are red, their values are still there. So if we get another revision, and it's just a revision of the drawing, and you already have like your CMM data specified there, along with any sort of measurements input, it will keep those values associated with that specific property. So you don't have to recreate the capture and also recreate any of your measurements input. So you can kind of do that all hand in hand. So we're going to hop back over into our PowerPoint and finish this thing off. So the last thing I wanted to point out was our ease of use. So, inspection documents made easy, and essentially we're talking about just time saving. That's really what SolidWorks Inspection does for us. It's a tremendous time saver for what we're trying to do. And what I like to say is, hey, look, it allows other people to create your first article inspection reports. In most of the companies that we've worked with, there's been one person or two people who create these first article inspection reports because they are really complicated and because they're doing them manually. But because the software is so easy to use and so easy to learn, you could have somebody like an intern or somebody just go through and capture everything. So go through, capture everything, and then you have that one person go in and just quickly double check everything to make sure that the tolerances are correct and whatnot, and then you can just export it out. So you're taking that main quality department person and you're freeing up a lot of their time. So it's a seamless transition from manual ballooning. We've worked with a lot of customers that come from manual ballooning. They say, the transition's extremely easy just because the interface is extremely easy. It does have SolidWorks similar functionality. So if you're used to using SolidWorks drawings, you just zoom in, zoom out, zoom, pan, rotate, it's all very much the same. And what I like to say is it works the way it should. When you're using SolidWorks Inspection, everything works the way you think it should. It's very, very intuitive to use, and it's very easy to use. You just create your capture and put on your tolerances if you need be, but it just works the way it should, and there's really no issues with it. So SolidWorks integration. So we only talked about the standalone product today. But SolidWorks also has the SolidWorks Inspection add-in. And what this does is it'll actually go through and manually or automatically balloon all of the characteristics for you. So in the standalone package, because you're using a PDF, you have to go through and capture everything. But you have the ability in the add-in to automatically balloon everything right then and there. So what this opens the door for is reducing the time even further. So if you don't even have to capture anything, you can just go through and automatically capture everything and then export it out to inspection. That's where you can just kind of double check everything. So what I put here is you can ask for drawing files. So typically what we see is, we work with customers and they say, well, we get PDFs, and it's only because they don't have an inspection platform otherwise. So they just get PDFs, but they do have the ability to get drawing files. So if they ask for drawing files, that's when we can use the SolidWorks add-in to your advantage. So you might think that you'd be looking at the standalone, but if you go to whoever you're working with, they might say, oh yeah, I could send you like a DXF or a DWG. We can import that into SolidWorks and then automatically create those balloons and then export it to the standalone package. So there is additional time savings than what I just showed today. Right, and then we have the ability to export to the standalone. So you can export out to the standalone because the standalone has more features. It's meant to do inspection, where the SolidWorks add-in is just kind of a quick little thing that it gives you, but you have some additional functionality in there. So I just want to point out, if there's any questions, I'm going to be here. Just let me know. If you have any questions regarding this, either leave a comment or give us a call. Or anything like that, and please feel free to ask us any questions. So if you have any questions, it's up to you. Thanks. And just thanks for tuning in. My name's Derek, and I hope you guys have a good day.
Don't forget to check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and our blog for more great content by clicking on the links in the description below.